We're live.
Hello. Welcome back to Book Chats with Mostly Books. It appears we've hit Friday night again.
Would you look at that?
Would you look at that? So tonight we are going to be chatting about This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Mohtar and Max Gladstone. And now Jen, oh, by the way, I'm Jody, and this is Jen. And she's going to tell us the synopsis.
So this is I feel like it's, okay, well, I'll do my best. It's like enemies to lovers, post-human, time-traveling pen pals. And they're also gay. Yeah, so there's the agency. It's this, well, in the future sometimes because time travel. So there's the agency and Garden, and they're fighting for control of who's going to shape the future timelines, the future of the braid. And Blue is Garden's agent, and Red is the agency's agent. And it starts that Blue leaves a taunting letter for Red, and then they just write letters back and forth through the braids of time until the agency catches up with Red and Blue, and then they have to deal with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a super hard book to give a synopsis for. Keep in mind this is a novella, so it shouldn't be that complicated, but it's that complicated.
Yeah. And we do love to see it.
Yeah.
It's just hard to talk about.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about. Even when you told me about this way back when I actually started reading it, it was still not what I expected.
Yeah.
Which was sort of surprising because you told me quite a bit. But even reading it was just a very different experience.
I even wrote you a review for it.
You did. And you'd think that would have said it all, but... Well, first off, what were your overall impressions?
I love this book so much. I read it... Well, I listened to the audiobook of it twice, actually. And it was like a year ago. It was actually about a year ago because it was over summer. And I listened to it like over 2 days, so a couple hours each day. I think I cried while I was reading. I'm pretty sure I cried.
You did say that.
Yeah, it made me tear up because it's just, they're so tender.
Yeah, and then the end. I mean, there's amazing moments between them, and then the end, and then the moments before the end. Yeah,
we'll get there.
I get why you teared up.
And so then it was when I was at my grandma's house.
I was thinking that.
And I finished it, and then I just kind of sat at her kitchen table, like, speechless. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't ever get to read this book for the first time again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of those.
I have mixed feelings on it. As we all know, Jody has issues with novellas. That still seems to hold true. There are parts of this book that I just loved. Some of the language was just amazing. I love the letters. I sometimes felt the rest of the world was kind of like I'd get bogged down in it because there's not a lot of world building because it's a novella. And so I'm either confused at what's happening in the present time, wanting to have it expanded on. Sometimes I kind of was just like, why are we in this war? And tell me more about your individual worlds. And
did you want it to be more concrete for like what the present time was? Because there's a present time in all the strands of the braid.
It just said it was always swapping around.
Yeah.
Yes. I think what I needed was one concrete time that they would occasionally maybe return back to, maybe where they get their missions, like something there where I could be grounded, I think, because there's a lot to keep track of. You're switching point of views, you're switching times, then you're kind of switching times within the letter sometimes.
Yeah.
So it was times within points of view.
Yeah, and with how you're getting the letters isn't how they're finding them in the moment.
Right. And
that's
so
a whole other thing. Sometimes
I got a little confused and bogged down in that part and had to go back and be like, who's talking? Where are we? Overall, I think I mostly enjoyed it. Like, I loved the love story in it. It was adorable. And adorable is not the right word.
It's very tender.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Like, it's the one they're soulmates and...
Yeah.
And there's so much more to that, too. Yeah. So I liked all of that part of it. But I need it maybe just lengthened. And I would have liked it more.
I want more of them. I think that about blue and red.
I think if this would have been a longer novel, then some of that world building would have been fleshed out, and I wouldn't have been so just
unmoored.
Yeah, I guess. It was very unsettling, that part. And then you'd hit the letters, and that was wonderful. Like, I found myself being like, I don't care about what they're doing, just get to the letter.
Yeah. I didn't really have that.
Yeah.
I could just kind of take it that they were, like, on whatever mission they were on and just kind of, like, go with it, and that their commandant, so the head of the agency, and Garden's, like, collective
that was interesting.
hive mind were just, I'm like, oh, they're there. If we need to know about them, we'll be told.
Yeah, I think that is the way to approach this. Just go in with it saying it is what it is. I don't need more, and you'll love it.
It is a little bit of a weird book, but weird, I mean that as a very good compliment. Like, I really like this one. I find it weird and endearing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely weird. And definitely, I would agree with endearing as well. Do you want to talk about Red and Blue first? Do you want to talk about the characters and what you thought of them? Or do you want to talk about writing first? What do you feel tonight?
You've read a few time travel books. What'd you think of this kind of time travel?
This is the weirdest one yet. But again, I think it was because I didn't have, like, one place to anchor me. I liked it. I liked the idea of the strands and the switching between the strands, and if you change something here, it kind of cuts that strand off and changes it to whatever.
Or they go up braid or down braid.
I enjoyed that, and again, I wanted that expanded on, but then you have to have more of that. It gets tricky, I think, to write about that stuff and the whole time traveling conundrums that can amount. So I can see not necessarily wanting to deal with that.
Yeah.
In which case this was handled really well because you didn't get stuck into those. Like, that wouldn't have happened because.
Yeah. And it's very... Well, time travel's always complicated, which is why we haven't invented it yet. Or if we have... Someone please fix this year.
Please fix this year, yes.
But it's like if you think about it too hard, your brain starts to hurt. Because, like, reading it the second time, I noticed things that I didn't pick up on the first time. Both in, like, how it's written, so in the form, but then how that form plays into how the time traveling is explained. So I was like, so you kind of can read it for the first time again.
And I actually kind of want to maybe go back sometime and reread it, knowing how this is going to go. I think I would like it a lot more, too.
Yeah. So now characters.
Do you have a favorite?
No.
I don't either. I loved them both for such different reasons. And I think they are, like, they complement each other so well.
They belong together.
Yeah. I found myself really worrying about Red and her situation, which is, I think, again, why I was like, what's happening? What's happening with the agency? Are they following her?
Yeah.
Because I guess we should note at this point that, you know, they are enemies, and now they're kind of starting to have a romance, and they're like, kind of not totally, like, giving up clues of what's happening on the other side, but kind of.
Yeah, and they're both, like, the best at what they do.
The best assassins, or whatever they are trained to do.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that assassin is even the right word.
They don't call them assassins. They talk, like, Red or Blue. I think it's in Garden talks about them, like, being... No, it's Red. It's Red in the agency, about them being, like, decanted at some point, and how all of, like, the agents are, like, outliers in a certain way, or outcasts. Yeah, so they're not assassins, but they do assassinate people
on the occasion to change the timeline.
So yeah, when it's called for,
when the agency or the Garden calls for it.
Yeah. So
yeah, I found myself really worried about her situation because of the whole, like, treason that she was basically committing, and it felt like you kind of could feel them, like, catching on. But I'm not really even sure where that moment happened. But all of a sudden you were like, this is getting a little more serious, guys.
Because Red sees, hears, feels someone following her, and, like, she doesn't know who it is. She doesn't know if it's the agency. She doesn't know if it's someone else from Garden. Turns out it's kind of neither, but also both.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah, we'll come back to that.
Unrelated maybe to character, but kind of related. I love the way they started their letters with their little names.
I did too.
I thought some of those were so fabulous. Do you want to give examples?
Yeah, so for writing to Red, Blue would start the letters off with, like, Dear My Cardinal, or Dear My Heart's Blood, or...
That's why they're birds.
Maybe. Or because I think the colors, and it's always some other thing of an object, or...
Strawberry was one of them.
Yeah.
Raspberry. One was a blueprint.
Yeah, I found this one, Dearest Lapis.
Yes.
So it's just... There's a 90s reference that Blue... I don't even know what it is. It's before my time.
The song.
Yeah.
The Blue song. That's right. I forgot about that. That was before your time. But I'm blue. Yeah, okay. Not before my time.
Or this one's Dear Red Sky at Morning. And they're just really sweet.
Mm-hmm.
And
it was fun to watch them go from enemies to romance. It was a fun transition between their letters that were starting out as, like, you know, kind of snarky, catcalling, like, I can one-up you.
Like taunts, yeah.
Yeah. To these really sweet verses.
Yeah, and they're like, do you dream? And they talk about hunger. And
the
it's
food,
like,
yeah. Yeah, because they're such different societies that they do all of that very differently.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's why that's why I said post-human, because they can take on human forms and use, like, she, her, human pronouns. But, like, Blue talks about having, like, 4 sets of teeth, and Red has, like, artificial organs and can change form. So it's very interesting.
Yeah. Post-human, I think, is a really good way of phrasing that.
Because some people in Red's agency just, like, upload themselves into, like, the cloud, basically. Yeah, because
they're really techie.
Yeah, the agency's more techie, and then the garden is more...
nature-y.
Yeah. But it doesn't ever read like magic. It still very much always feels like technology.
It's still a science, yeah.
Yeah.
But just done more through biology.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah. Okay, do you want to say anything else about Red and Blue as characters?
Did you have, like, a trouble keeping them separate? The voices? Because I, listened to an audiobook and it's 2 different people.
Oh, okay. We wondered about that.
Yeah. So I never had, like, trouble keeping them separate.
I did, but I think it was because, again, that present, wherever I was at in that moment, it was sometimes hard to gauge which character it was, because they are both different from different societies and different approaches to how they handle their strand. Yeah. But at the same time, they're very similar. And so, yes, I did often have to go back and be like, which one started this chapter?
Yeah.
It may have just been me reading it and being somewhat, I don't know, maybe not. Maybe that wasn't the right time to have read this book. Yeah. And maybe I would have got it better then. I don't know.
It happens. Yeah. It also gets dense sometimes with the language that's chosen. Like, not so much the second time when I read, because I already knew it was going to happen, but the first time I'd have to, like, really like, pay attention as I was listening. Like, I would just lay on the floor listening to this, staring at the ceiling.
Yeah, I don't think the first time through would have been one that you could do something else, even coloring or something. Yeah. I'm not sure I would have been able to do that and listen.
Second time I was coloring for the whole thing.
That's awesome. I was really impressed with the 2 writers. I kind of am curious how they approached writing this. I don't know if each one was a separate character or if they just worked jointly on them, but it was seamless. Like, you would never know that one person didn't write this.
Yeah.
And I loved the inscription in the beginning.
To you,
yes, you. Yeah. Which was so appropriate for this book.
It
somehow.
is. Yeah. Because Red has fun with postscripts. It's really cute.
Yeah.
Cute fits this novel, even though it doesn't seem like it should.
And it's pretty gritty, but there are definitely cute moments.
Yeah, Blue gets, like, bitten by a wolf thing.
Yeah, and wasn't there a spider thing?
One of them eats a spider.
Maybe that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, because the spider eats something else.
Yes,
so
yes.
Yeah. I promise that makes sense in context.
It does. Should we say spoilers? Mm-hmm. Okay, because
Because I want to talk about a thing.
Jen's bursting. So spoilers from here so she can say it. Okay, go ahead.
We need to talk about the Seeker.
Okay, let's talk about the Seeker.
Okay, so that's the person Red thinks, or not, no, back up.
Red feels.
Yeah, so we get, even from the first, like, vignette. Yes, thank you. Or first chapter. We get that, like, Red's on the battlefield, finds this letter from Blue, destroys the letter, and then a Seeker comes in, collects the ashes, turns the ashes into a dough, and eats it, or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, okay, who are you?
Right.
And we don't really find out until much later.
Well, and it's interesting because every now and then at the end of a chapter, somebody will be collecting something or, like, skirting by in the background. And you're like, who is this other person?
But this other person's also giving us the letters.
Yes.
Which I didn't pick up till the second read. I thought it was just like they read the letter and then we get it, like what they, in whoever's head we're in. But it's the Seeker. Mm-hmm. And who is the Seeker?
You want me to tell you?
Yes.
It's Red.
And you're like, wait, Red's there. How is Red the Seeker?
How did Red go back? Well, it's time travel.
Yeah, time travel.
So do you want to expand on that?
Yes.
Okay.
So the agency catches on to Red and Blue's letters through, like, tracing where they're in similar points in time together. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, Blue's trying to turn you. And Red's like, ha ha ha, funny. Ha, sure.
That's it.
Like, awkward laugh. And they're like, okay, so we're going to set a trap for Blue. And Red is part of that. Ends up creating, like, a poison plant. And Blue, and Red's like, don't read any of my letters to you. Don't, like, this has to be done. Like, we can just be rivals. Like, that will have to be enough. And Blue's like, absolutely not. And she knows that this plant is poison. She knows, like, she's very well aware of this. But she's like, if I don't eat it, they're going to know Red tipped me off. Yeah. So Blue eats the poison plant and dies. But it's not a normal death because the poison wasn't a normal poison. So Red is, like, crowned as a war hero and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then...
Oh, could you imagine? The love of your life basically sacrificed herself. Yeah. And now you're being crowned a hero for it. Like, that's
a whole thing.
That's a whole thing.
This book is a whole thing. Anyway, so Red's grieving and very upset. And then she is in London? She's in the city. And she sees a mural on the wall of a boy dying in, like, an apartment with blue pants on. And it's very similar to how she found Blue dead. And she's like, wait a minute. Did Blue leave this trail for me? So we're getting all these letters of Red going back in time to when they first, like, met and saw each other. And she's recreating Blue from their memories.
It's amazing.
I'm fine.
Yeah, and so the idea is to bring her back through the memories of the past as she goes back and visits. Mm-hmm. Now the question is, do you think she succeeded?
Yes.
Me too.
Yes.
Me too. I'm going to live in that glass half full realm.
She leaves her another letter in the prison.
Oh, yeah, she does.
Yeah. So Red gets brought in for questioning because she can only outrun the agency for so long. Yeah. And it's not going well. She's being interrogated and tortured. And they're like, okay, last chance. Tomorrow we're going to pick your take you apart and, like, pick your brain.
Literally.
Yeah. And then she gets a letter slid under the door, and it's from Blue, and she's like,
I forgot about that. How did I forget about that?
I don't know. And Blue's like, excuse you, why did you think I was going to, like, never talk to you again? And then it's like, I gave you 5 minutes. Here's instructions for how to get out. Not that I think you'll need them.
And then they just sail off into the sunset. Yeah. Or whatever that would look like in their world and time and space.
My dear hyper extremely red object. But maybe this is how we win, Red. You and me, this is how we win. So they're gonna go make their own strand or braid somewhere, and they're gonna be happy. They're gonna have dogs. They're gonna make tea.
They're gonna have dogs.
They said that. They're like, we can have dogs.
I love that that's the dream. Oh, it's adorable. Yes, it was a satisfying ending.
And it's very open-ended while still, like, giving you closure for the arcs that are started.
Like there was enough closure for me as well. And to learn that Red was doing that, it just makes you warm and fuzzy.
It's like peak romance right there. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was a good moment. I agree.
It was good.
Did you have a favorite vignette throughout?
I like the tea one in the London tea house because I don't know, I like tea.
I think that was my favorite one too.
I like the one where Red is reassembling a skeleton and to like create a hermitage somewhere down the timeline. Mm-hmm. I like the Rome one.
I liked the Rome one.
Just, you know, some senators there stab Caesar.
I did like the other tea one because that was another like just a warm her sitting out on and that was when she was married, right, and had kid.
Yeah, Blue was embedded, so it was like a long con game.
Yeah, I mean they basically lived so many lifetimes in some respects because like that really was a long that was year. I mean, she had a whole life there, which was just crazy to think about too. Like the amount of time they've existed.
And they've known each other since they were little.
Yeah.
Because Blue has... Oh, this is when it, like, really hit me last night that I was like, oh my gosh, they're soulmates.
Aww.
Like, that Blue was very ill as a child and was cut off by the garden because they're like, we're risking enemy exposure. We're going to cut our losses before you can hurt the rest of us, basically.
Because the garden is that collective mind, as you've mentioned. Yeah. And so therefore 1 week... stem, I don't know how to say that. Bud, root, I don't know. You got to just nip it in the bud. There you go.
So Blue is very ill, but this is actually Red coming back and like inoculating her against this future poison, which we see Red do because Red is like, as the Seeker, is like, this is the last thing I have to do. Like, I have so much of Blue in me. Garden recognizes me as Blue.
Right? How clever was that?
Yeah, and then she
yeah.
And then after that, like, she's running from the agency and from Garden.
I was so impressed when she could fool that Garden collective, which seemed very all-knowing in a whole different way than the agency is all-knowing.
Yeah, but she's like, I just have to, like, if I, like, doubt myself, that if I'm afraid, then they'll know I'm not Blue. I just have to trust in this bond.
And she did.
It's
and
fine.
It worked.
I have a lot of feelings about this
Jen has
book.
a lot of feelings about
A year
this
later,
one.
I still have a lot of feelings about this one.
But then you just reread it again, so...
Yeah.
It just brought all of them back and then some.
It really did.
Yes. It was good. It was a good read. It's very different than anything we've read. I mean, and even any of the novellas, this was told very differently.
Yeah. Because in novellas, we did the Alyssa Cole novella, so realism, contemporary romance.
And we did the fantasy.
The Empress of Salt and Fortune. So that was, fantasy. This one's very much sci-fi.
It's very sci-fi, and I'm not a huge sci-fi reader, but it was still good. Like
It's a different sci-fi than I've usually read. I've usually read more like medical-based sci-fi, where it's like Frankenstein and stuff.
I feel like okay, not the kind I was thinking. I was thinking I may be more like space opera-y style, and I was going to say that this could have been kind of a space opera-esque if it was a full-on book.
And if there was more space.
Not because of that.
Yeah.
Exactly, because it's a novella.
Well, no, they do. They talk about multiple planets.
They do. I don't actually ever think they're really on. I've always envisioned them in space. But anyway, because we don't have... You're like overseeing it coming back. I don't know why. I just expected them in ships.
That's
Except the garden is more of its own planet. I don't know why. I needed more information. But because it didn't have that more information, it is not like that. It's not like anything I've read sci-fi wise.
You know what we forgot to do?
No.
No one's recording us. We will answer comments later.
Oh, yeah. Side note. We are all off on things like that today. Any other things that we have to talk about that I've somehow missed?
I'm not sure. Oh, what do you think of Commandant? Like, there isn't a lot of characters in this book, which was, it's a novella, so you don't necessarily have this page space to develop a bunch of characters. But
I was kind of frightened of that one. Mm-hmm. It was a very scary authoritarian person, and which is why I think I was always so worried for Red.
It was also set in, wasn't it in, Nazi Germany or during World War II when the Commandant shows up?
One of them, but there was another part where she was maybe... Like, that was one I couldn't really decide where they were, and she was talking about the Commandant finding and spying her.
Mm-hmm.
But it was... I didn't think he was actually on Earth.
Oh,
I thought it was, like, deciding where the next strand was going to be.
Yeah, so Commandant summons Red to a field office. The agency has chosen a Russian front close to the main braid where the Nazis have some trick of raising the dead. Nothing supernatural, but nature has strange forms. And it goes
I think
on.
if you're going to choose that location, you're a frightening person.
Yeah. And the Commandant's been, like, completely uploaded into the network. I think that's actually how it's put in the book.
Yeah, I think that is true, too.
And she's, like, possessing a human?
Yeah, it was
For
weird.
lack of a better word.
Yeah, it was all weird and unsettling.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of unsettling moments in this.
Yeah. And then Garden visits Blue, but it's just, they're just Garden.
Mm-hmm. It felt much more peaceful. But don't be confused, or don't be, like, duped by that. Like, it felt very tranquil.
But, like,
but I don't think it is.
Yeah.
Still. Yeah, I think it was just kind of like, we're going to show all the flowers and not the sinisterness.
Like, undercover
Yeah.
sinister.
Yeah. So watch out for that, because sometimes that's even worse. What did you think of the Commandant?
Creepy. Like,
Yeah.
she's creepy. And just, like, how she's not fully there, but still omniscient, sort of.
Yeah. Unsettling.
But I love how they were, like, they hid their tracks so well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Commandant was only like, oh, I think she's starting to try to turn you. And they've been, like, communicating for years.
Okay, initially, before we found out who the Seeker was, I was like, is this person the person that, like, goes behind and cleans the tracks, like, so nobody sees it? And I'm like, is it working for them? I had a brief thought of that. Because, like, you just don't know who that person is. Are they evil?
Yeah.
Why are they there? I mean, you only get such a small glimpse of them.
And Red, like, attacks the Seeker at some point, and
Yeah.
that's actually when I figured out the Seeker was also Red. Because I was like, oh, she's being, like, shadowed by herself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just, yeah. So I remember trying to figure out who the Seeker was. And being like, I just don't know.
And then it tells you, and then you want to cry.
Right? For the reason for doing it. Yep. There were a lot of feelings in this book. I agree.
There are a lot of feelings for a very small cast.
Small cast, small page count.
It was good.
So much happens. And, like, it's such a weird thing that we can't really do a very good synopsis. I don't know how you'd explain this book. You guys just have to go read it.
They write letters, and then they fall in love.
I mean, yeah, but...
It's like, that's not wrong.
It's not wrong. It's not totally
Yeah.
enough of it, I guess. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So, we encourage people to read it, I think, on this one.
Yeah.
It's definitely an experience to read.
It is. It's good. Even if you don't really like fantasy or time travel, like, that's not really the focus of it. It's more that, like, they know each other through multiple lifetimes. And that they have this connection.
Yeah, it's more their relationship that develops.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the way they continue that.
It's good.
Mm-hmm.
I turned to, like, the correct page for, like, 2 different things in this book, and this,
Well done.
like, that never happens.
Did you, like, have it
No.
noted? No? You just randomly opened? That's pretty impressive.
That's never going to happen again. Never again.
Yeah, I still don't know why they chose birds on the cover, but I like the cover. I
It's
like
Cardinal and Bluebird.
Yes, and I know they call them each that, I think, at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that they're segmented like the strands would be. I think that's such a clever...
broken. I thought it was like that they could phase to different things.
Oh, see, that's good too.
Yeah.
I thought it was the breaking of the strands. How funny. All sorts of things we can think about.
And who's the title for, then? This is how you lose the Time War.
I think that is for the garden and the agency. Ha ha ha.
Joke's on you.
We're leaving. You're on your own. No. Yeah, that's a good point. There's lots to think about in this book.
There's lots to think about. And you still get stuff out of it when you read it a second time.
Yeah, I think I would like it even more the second time, to be honest. Because I think I just got really, like I said, trapped in these, like, pointless things that I didn't need to really get stuck into.
The premise is weird.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, because it kind of just, like, throws you in and only tells you, like, a bare minimum of what you need to know, which works.
Mm-hmm.
It's just,
and
like,
you really can't think of this as going to be like anything else you've read.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think, again, that was my issue. Like, I kept thinking, we're going to find their home base somewhere. And there is no home base. They just keep moving.
Yep.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on this one?
Highly recommend. If that wasn't already clear.
This is a highly recommend from Jen, yes.
Yeah.
I think you've gushed about this one. It's pretty good. Like, I liked that.
It's just so good.
Yeah. All right. Well, do you want to tell us what we're reading next week?
Oh, do you have any final thoughts?
I liked it. I would probably recommend it. I think this is, for me, it was a solid 3. Again, I'm inclined to say that like, if I read it, knowing what I know, I might rate it higher. But I haven't reread it, so I can't really say that I've done that.
And I feel like you'd recommend it to people, like, if you knew, like, what they liked.
I would
and then
also
be like, oh, hey, look at this thing.
recommend it to people who were looking for just a really unique reading adventure. And was really wanted something maybe different.
Yeah.
Like I said, a good weird.
Yeah, it's a very good weird.
Like, I'm tired of all the other stuff I read. I need something else. Yeah, this would be the perfect cleanse. All right, so cool. What do we read next week?
We're reading The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. We all love The Night Circus here.
Yes.
I'm so glad I got them to read it.
Yes.
I'd love seeing you guys read and be like, oh my gosh, it's so good. And I'm like, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think I've actually now read that one twice.
Yeah, I have too.
So, and it was great both times. Yeah, I'm super excited for this. I agree. Night Circus was fabulous.
And this one is... Oh, the dust jacket's on upside down on this book.
Excuse me, I swallowed.
Yeah. I've started it a little bit. You've started it a little bit.
I have.
Preview.
It's very different than the Night Circus, so I'm excited about that. And it's kind of a book within a book within a book within a book, which I like.
Nested.
Yeah. So I think it'll have a lot to talk about next week on this one.
Also, the book underneath the dust jacket is really pretty.
Beautiful. Which I'm sure we'll talk about again next week, but it's beautiful.
So it has the bee, the key, and the sword.
Which are all relevant.
Very relevant. And in this order, they will be very relevant.
Yeah.
That's not a spoiler. You find that out in like
right
20
away.
pages, at least. Maybe more.
You might even find that out in the synopsis, to be honest.
No, but when it like appears.
Oh, yeah. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So we're very excited to read this.
Yeah, I'll read anything she writes, I've decided.
Yeah, low-key, same.
So, yeah. Anyway, we highly recommend you check back, because we're going to have lots of thoughts, I think, on
We
this
are going
one.
to have lots of... there's 500-some pages for us to have thoughts on.
And I did text Jen and say 20 pages in, oh my gosh, we have to do this one. I have so many things to talk about. 20 pages.
494. I overestimated. So we have 494 pages of things to talk about.
It'll be good. Yeah, so if you want to read in advance, because you're going to get it all spoiled.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that one up front.
Yeah.
You can call us at Mostly Books, or you can order on our website at mostlybooksaz.com. And you could also do the audiobook on Libro FM.
Yeah.
I haven't heard. I know you, did you start the audio?
I started it, yeah. But I had a harder time getting into it. It might have just been like the reading speed, so maybe if I'd sped it up a little bit, it might have gone better.
Well,
but
her writing is one you want to almost like get lost into and read, I feel like. I think it would be I think if I listened to it, I'd want to read it first and then listen to it, because I would want to enjoy the experience of the book.
I will say that since I did both, I was much more sucked into it when I was reading a physical book. Especially with how she tells her stories. And, you kind of want to see it as much as hear it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Agree. All right. Yeah. So anyway, check back on us next week and we'll tell you all about it.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.